friends, my name is Maylin and welcome back to my channel. I'm a flutist, performer, and music teacher located in the city of Kamloops, British Columbia, and this is my channel where we learn all things flute. So thank you so much for joining me here today. In today's video, we'll be finally getting on to the Etudes book, the 76 graded studies for the flute, book 1. We're going to be going over page 4, which will be including number 10, number 11, and also number 12. So if you're interested, then just keep on watching. As always, if you do have any questions throughout the video, please feel free to drop them in the comment section down below. I do my best to answer them as soon as I see them. Also, if you do have any issues when it comes to practicing, feel free to check out my free practice guide, also located in the description down below. It gives you 8 really easy steps to follow to help guide you to make a better practice session. I just wanted to thank you all for your patience with me. The past month and a little bit has been a little crazy for me. We had a family emergency, and then I also met someone really amazing and fantastic. So things have been changing in my routine, but I finally had an opportunity to sit down and pump out some videos. So thank you so much for your patience, and I hope you enjoy this one. Alright, so let's just get right into today's video. We'll be reading out of the 76 graded studies for the flute, part 1. So I'm going to start with number 10. What I like to do before we start looking at a piece is I like to go through this little checklist of mine. So the thing I like to look at first is our time signature. Then we'll do number 2, our key signature. Number 3, we're going to look at our tempo indication. And then number 4, we're going to be looking at our roadmap. Let's start with number 1, our key signature. So I'm going to put up the piece right over here. So as we see here, there's nothing written in the key signature. So we're going to assume that it's either C major or A minor. I'm going to look through to make sure that it is in C major or if the indications of A minor. The first thing we look at is if we see any accidentals in the key signature. We see none. Then we're going to be starting by looking at the first note and the last note. So we're going to see if it starts on the tonic. So that means the first note of either C major or A minor. And what I see is at the beginning, we don't start on C, but we do end on C, but we do start in the C major triad. So we actually start on a G. All right, so that would be number 1. Number 2, if it was an A minor, we would see a lot of the raised 7th. So that would be G sharp. So if we look through the piece and we look at all the Gs, we don't see any of them being G sharp. So I would assume that we are fully in C major. So now we're going to look at the time signature. So here we see that nice big C. C stands for common time, and which means that we are playing 4/4, so it's 4/4 time. The first number of the 4 on top meaning 4 beats, the second number on the bottom telling us what kind of note those beats are, and that is a quarter note, so 4 quarter notes per measure. Now we're going to look at the tempo indication here. So we are playing Allegro moderato, and thankfully we are actually given what the quarter note equals, so quarter note will equal 126 beats per minute. So that means if you have your metronome, that's going to be the final tempo that we'll be playing at here. And then we're going to do a quick look at the roadmap. So we're going to see if there are any repeats or anything, or if we need to go back to the beginning, so like a DC al capo. What I'm going to be seeing is I'm just going to read through the music. So first we're going to play through that first line, just like regular. Then we're going to play the second line twice because we do have the repeat. The repeats at the beginning and at the end of that second line. Once we're done repeating that, then we're going to go to the third line and the fourth line, end with a beautiful fermata, and that's going to be it. So that's our roadmap. All right, so now let's get into the clap and count. So I'm going to be clapping this piece minus the repeat at the final tempo because it is pretty much the same rhythm the whole time. So generally this piece is very repetitive, and what you're going to be focusing on primarily is getting the correct articulation and the correct notes, as well as all the dynamic markings. And of course, if you do find that this is much too fast for you, feel free to go into the video settings. So just click that little gear, go into playback settings and slow it down. It might distort the sound a little bit, but it'll definitely be able to help you with the tempo here. So you can slow it down to like 0.75 or 0.85 depending on how slow you want it to be. Okay, so again, I'm going to be clapping this at a quarter equals 126. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Alright, so I've decided not to play through the entire piece just because it is, again, that same kind of rhythm. Just be careful in the second line that we are holding that dotted quarter note that is for 3 beats. make sure you do take a rest before repeating it. And then the last line, again, is exactly the same, making sure that that first bar of the last measure, the last line I should say, again, you're holding that dotted quarter, 3 beats total. Take a breath with that quarter, and at the end there's that little, it looks like a rainbow with a dot in the middle, so that is a fermata, meaning that you're going to hold the note for longer than you see there. So it's going to be at least half the amount of the note in there, so we're going to hold it for a minimum of 6 beats. Wonderful. Okay, so now that we've done the clapping aspect, now we're going to play it. So again, I'm going to skip playing this at a slower tempo and just play it at the final tempo. Again, if it's too fast for you, definitely go back into the playback settings and set it at a lower tempo to start off. Again, start off as slow as you need to make sure you're not making any mistakes. That is really important, because when you're first learning something, it's kind of like you're going on a wet track and let's say you're riding a horse and buggy. So the first time you make that round around the track, the wheels of your horse buggy is going to already set the grooves for how you're learning the piece. So again, make sure you're taking it at a nice slow tempo where you can make those first round grooves correct. And before we start, I'm going to recap what the accents are here. So we're going to make sure that the little dot is a staccato, so it's short and detached, but not super short, mostly detached. And then also we have these like little, it looks like little mini decrescendos. So those are just breath accents. So what you're going to do is you're going to have a little bit of extra air behind the note. So it gives a little bit more weight to the note. So now I'm going to again be playing this at the final tempo here. So that is a quarter equals 126. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. So again, before we finish this piece, I just want to recap what the dynamics are. So make sure that you start at a nice P, a nice strong P, P being piano, which usually means softly. So I would actually play this because of the accents and because of the tempo indication. I would play it a little bit louder, so I'm playing it about a mezzo piano, mezzo forte even. But if you want to give a nice contrast, then what I would do is, again, play that intro nice and strong. When you get to the repeats, the second line there, come down a little bit. You can also experiment with your own dynamics as well. Just make sure that you decrescendo at the end and then start again at piano. Now we're going to move on to number 11. So I'm going to put it up right here. So let's go through our 4 steps at the beginning. So we're going to first of all look at our key signature. So I don't see any accidentals. That would either indicate C major or A minor. So let's look and see if we can find anything that'll help us to figure out what that key signature is. So looking at the first note and the last note that we play, we both play them on the tonic of C. So again, very strong indication we're in C major. In A minor, we'd be looking for the raised 7th, which would be a G sharp. If you look at all the G's in this study, I don't see any G sharps. So again, very strongly suggesting C major, and I would say that this one is in C major. Next, we're going to look at the time signature here. So we see that we are in 3/4. So the top number giving us how many beats per measure. So in this case, there's going to be 3 rather than 4 than we're used to. And then again, looking at that bottom number, it's going to indicate what type of note it is. So 4 equals a quarter note. So that means we have 3 quarter notes per measure. Now we're going to look at the tempo indication. So we have movimento di valse. Hopefully I'm saying that correctly. So it's supposed to mean like moving in a kind of waltz style. And a dotted half note is going to be equaling 76. So usually in 3/4, we have that nice wheel feeling. So that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. So the first beat of every single bar should have a nice weight to it, a nice feel to it. So you feel like it's at the bottom of the wheel. So before we get into clapping it, again, making sure we look at the roadmap, that it would be number 4. So I don't see anything, no repeats, no indication to go back to the beginning. So we're just playing this piece from top to bottom. Very straightforward. Before we start our clap and count, I do want to take note of our dynamics. So let's make sure that we take note of that before we start playing. So we start again at a P, which is the piano, nice and soft. Then we have these hairpins. So we're going to have nice crescendo, decrescendo. And then again, we're going to repeat that a few times. The third time we do it, we're going to have a nice long decrescendo. So it's going to last over 2 bars at the beginning of the 3rd bar, all the way back to the piano. So where you go when you decide to play these is completely up to you. So if you want it to be a nice piano to mezzo piano or a piano to mezzo forte, that's all up to your discretion as the player, which is really cool. Just make sure we, again, noting that we have some more hairpins not in the second line there. And then the third time we're going to play a nice beautiful crescendo up to a forte, and then there's no indication that it goes down. So again, you can choose what you want to do with the 4th line, just making sure that we do, again, have a nice beautiful crescendo going into the 5th line, 3rd bar, and then ending off nice and strong. So what I'm actually going to do is clap this study at a slower tempo. So I'm going to clap it with the quarter note equaling 124. So that means you're going to hear every single beat. While also play it at that tempo with the flute. And then I will also play this for you at the final tempo as well. So again, making sure that if you feel like this is a little bit too fast, going to the video settings and slowing this down. With this first example, you're going to hear every single quarter note, so it's going to help you if you have any issues with counting. But eventually you're going to want to try and use the tempo with the dotted quarter, because then all you're going to hear is that nice beat 1, and then you have to make sure you're keeping count of the rest of the beats, 2 and 3 in your head, which is great practice for when you're playing without a metronome. So this is going to be the clapping count at a quarter note equals 124. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, rest, 3, 1, rest, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, rest, 3, 1, rest, 3, 1, rest, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, rest, rest, 1, rest, rest, 1, rest, rest. All right, so that's going to be a really fun piece to play. So now let's do it with the flute. Again, if you feel like you're not quite comfortable with the rhythm, feel free to practice it over and over and over again. This is not something that is as easy as the first few videos. Definitely there's a bigger learning curve between this, page 3 and page 4. So make sure you take as much time as you need. Make sure you feel comfortable before moving on to picking it up with the flute. Of course, if you are uncomfortable with any of those notes, make sure that you write them in as well. So now I'm going to be playing it with the flute. So again, a quarter equals 124. 1, 2, 3, 1. if you feel like this is too fast, feel free to go ahead and slow that down in the playback settings. And again, practice this in little sections if you find it really uncomfortable. When you're playing this through the first time, practice it as slow as you need in order not to make any mistakes. Okay, and now I'm going to be doing it at that final tempo. So the beat is going to be a dotted half note equals 76. So again, we'll do that clap and count, just a nice recap. So it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. All right, so definitely a big difference between the first time we played it and this last time. So again, take your time, and if you want to, I would highly recommend slowly increasing the tempo as you get more comfortable with it. So again, starting at a tempo that you feel really comfortable with. Once you are certain you're not going to make a lot of mistakes or very, very few mistakes, then what you can do is move that metronome click up maybe 2 or 3 beats per minute, a little bit faster. So if you do that every day for a week or so, you should at least double the amount that you're playing tempo-wise and feel really comfortable that way before you get to the final tempo. All right, so now I'm going to be playing that on the flute. So again, it is a dotted half note equals 76. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So that's going to be quite a fun little etude there. And now we're going to go on to the last etude of today, and that is going to be number 12. So I'm going to put it up right over here. This one's going to be a nice short one compared to the last two. So let's go through again our first 4 things that we look at before we start the piece. First, we're going to look at that key signature. So this time we do have an accidental in there, and that is the F sharp. So that means if we memorize what our key signature is, it can either be G major or E minor. So again, what we're going to do is we're going to look through that piece and see if we have any indications to see if we're a G major or an E minor. So what I'm going to see is we're going to look at the first note and the last note. And in this case, we see E both times. If it is an E minor, we're going to be seeing a lot of the raised 7th, so that would be a D sharp. So now I'm going to look at all the Ds, and I see that a majority of them are sharp, so 3 at least here. So I would say we are in E minor. So the next thing I'm going to look at now is our time signature, so that's number 2. So again, we're in 3/4, so meaning the top number, meaning how many beats. So we have 3 beats per bar plus the 4 at the bottom, telling us what kind of note those beats are, which is a 4, which equals quarter notes. So we have 3 quarter notes per measure. Again, remembering that nice wheel motion, that 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Then number 3, we're going to be looking at the tempo indication. So we see that we are playing in andante. And again, we are given the quarter note here. So the quarter note equals 88. Awesome. Now we're going to take a quick look and see number 4 if we have anything crazy with the roadmap. And I don't see any repeats or any da capos here, so we're just going to again be playing from top to bottom. Wonderful. So we'll just do the clapping count here now that we are ready, making sure that we are again looking at the dynamics. So we are starting at a nice forte, which means strongly, or loudly. So making sure that you have a nice beautiful tempo. And we do have forte all the way up to that second line, where we then go down to a mezzo piano. And then we'll have a mezzo forte and a forte. So that means from that mezzo piano, we're going to have a nice crescendo all the way to the end. So this one, I'm only going to do the final tempo here. I think it is slow enough. Again, making sure that you're nice and exact. And if it's too fast for you, going into the playback settings and slowing it down. So this is going to be a quarter note equals 88. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 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 3, 1, and 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. Alright, so this one's going to be a little bit tricky at the end. You kind of get lulled into that same, or that repeated quarter note little measure. So just make sure when it does change and halfway through that second line, and that you do get that nice, the second last bar to the end, 1 and 2, 3, and 1, 2, 3. So making sure that you're putting everything placed properly. If you feel like you're not confident with that specific rhythm, feel free to take a pencil and write it in to help you out. And then with the articulation here, we have staccatos under a slur. So this kind of articulation, it's like a long staccato. So you still want to play them detached, but you don't want to play them as detached as you would a normal staccato, but you don't want them to be completely slurred all the way either. So it's going to take a little bit of experimenting. If you're not quite sure what that is totally okay as well. Just try and play it as well as you can. Again, making sure that they do have a little bit of space between them, but they do have an overall nice legato feeling. Okay, so now I'm going to play that on the flute. So again, this is going to be a quarter note equals 88. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. So that one is very beautiful. I really like this one. And the thing that we're focusing on with this specific study is we are focusing on playing that beautiful, like bass continuo almost accompaniment with the first beat of every single bar. So what I'm doing is, again, there's a nice tenuto line there. So I'm really putting a nice heavy emphasis on the first beat, as you should, not maybe as dramatically in most pieces, but in this one, what you really want to hear is that beautiful bass. It's almost like a lower strings. You can kind of hear them going do, do. My singing isn't great, but that's kind of the image that you should be getting when you're listening and playing this piece. So every first beat of each measure should have a nice beautiful emphasis, and then it's like the second and third beat of each measure is the higher string section, so maybe like the violins are playing that. So that's what this particular etude is about, is getting that emphasis between playing two melody lines. So you have the lower melody line here with the first beat of every single bar, and that second melody line being the second and third beats of each bar. So very exciting. Alright, so that should be a pretty long video. I hope that you did enjoy. As always, if you have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section down below. I do my best to answer them as soon as I see them. And of course, if you have any issues with practicing, feel free to check out my free practice guide. Link is also in the description down below. And I just wanted to let you know that you are amazing and you're wonderful. Thank you for joining me here back on my channel for today's video. And as always, happy fluting!